showed me about Charlie Kirk will shock you. Listen closely, because this is not just about a man, a leader, or a movement. It is about a divine revelation that will stir your heart and force you to see how God raises up certain voices in the world for purposes far beyond human imagination. I must speak with urgency, because the moment you hear what I am about to share, something inside you will awaken. You will see that when God marks a person, when God appoints a messenger for an hour of darkness, nothing on earth can silence that voice. What God showed me is not meant to flatter, not meant to entertain, but to shake us into understanding how the hand of God moves among us. God opened my eyes to see that Charlie Kirk is not simply a figure of politics, culture, or debate. No. What I saw was the deeper reason why he stands so boldly, why he speaks so strongly, why he refuses to bow to the pressures of a world that seeks to silence truth. God revealed that he is an example of how one person, yielded to the convictions placed in their soul, can become a vessel of awakening. God showed me that the world may mislabel him, mock him, or misunderstand him, but that is the very sign of divine calling. When God selects a person to speak truth, they will always be resisted, because truth shakes the comfortable lies of the world. And as I look deeper, God impressed upon me this truth. Many are waiting for permission to stand boldly in their faith, in their beliefs, in their convictions. But God sometimes points to a man like Charlie Kirk as a living signpost. A signpost not of perfection, not of flawless character, but of courage in the face of storms. God is saying through his example, if one voice can pierce the darkness, how much more could an army of awakened souls do? That is the shock. It is not just about him, but about what God is trying to show through him. God revealed that his boldness is not accidental, but strategic. It is not arrogance. It is the courage that flows when you know the truth is not yours but God's. I saw that God uses people like Charlie Kirk to awaken the timid, to challenge the silent, to provoke the fearful into asking, why am I quiet when he is loud? Why am I hidden when he is unafraid? God is showing us that courage is contagious, and when one person dares to rise, it compels others to find their voice. But here is the deeper shock. God also showed me that whenever he raises someone to speak, the attacks will be fierce. The louder the voice, the sharper the arrows, the clearer the truth, the darker the lies sent to destroy it. And what God is teaching us through this example is that when you stand for God's truth in any sphere, whether it be politics, family business, or personal life, you must expect to be hated, resisted, and targeted. Yet God says, do not fear, for I will shield you. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk is not that he is beyond weakness, but that his weakness only magnifies God's strength. The storms he faces are not because he is wrong, but because he has dared to shine light into darkness. And then God pressed upon my spirit this undeniable reality. So many of you listening are hiding your own voice. You are shrinking when you should be rising. You are silencing yourself when God has put fire in your mouth. The shock is not simply what God revealed about him, but what it reveals about you. God is saying, if I can use him, I can use you. If I can give him courage, I can give you courage. If I can sustain him in the midst of fire, I can sustain you in your trial. God showed me that Charlie Kirk is a symbol, a reminder that God places people in culture not just to speak ideas, but to wage a spiritual war. This is not a political matter, it is a divine matter. It is not about ideology, but about spiritual authority. God raises certain voices to challenge lies that are meant to enslave humanity, and when those voices rise, all of hell trembles. Do you see now why the attacks come? Because when one person stands in God's truth, they become a mirror reflecting what others are afraid to see. But let me take you deeper. God showed me that the shock is not in the man, but in the God who chooses the man. This is the mystery. God does not choose based on status, on age, on background, on wealth, or on fame. God chooses based on willingness. When a heart says, I will not compromise, God says, then I will use you. And when God uses you, you may not always be loved, but you will always be protected. The enemies may surround you, but God surrounds you more. The critics may rise, but God lifts you higher. What God showed me is this: the same spirit of courage you see in Charlie Kirk is not exclusive to him. It is available to you. God is saying, do not think that I only raise up a few. I am raising up a generation. But here is the tragedy. Many are refusing the call. Many are burying their voice. Many are watching from the sidelines while the world grows darker, waiting for someone else to rise. God is revealing through him that you no longer have the excuse of silence. You no longer have the excuse of fear. If one young man can stand boldly, then what excuse will you give when God asks why you hid? The revelation is this: God is calling you out of passivity. God is calling you out of compromise. God is calling you out of silence. And the shock is not in Charlie Kirk himself. The shock is in realizing that God wants to place the same fire in you. Do you feel it? That stirring inside, that conviction that you cannot keep living in shadows, that you cannot keep blending into the world, that you cannot keep hiding your faith, your convictions, your truth. God is saying, I rise. And God showed me something even greater. The shock is not only that he raises individuals, but that he uses them as sparks to ignite multitudes. One voice becomes a movement. One spark becomes a fire. One act of courage becomes a chain reaction of boldness. Do you understand what God is doing? He is not just lifting up Charlie Kirk to speak. He is lifting him as an example, so that you will be provoked to action. God is saying, do not applaud courage, imitate it. Do not watch from a distance. Step into battle yourself. Beloved, what God revealed is urgent. The days are dark, the lies are loud, and the world is shaking. But in the midst of it, God is raising up voices, and through them, he is calling forth your own. Do not be shocked only at what God is doing through Charlie Kirk. Be shocked at what God wants to do through you. God is saying, your silence is no longer acceptable. Your compromise is no longer excusable. Your timidity is no longer permissible. God is ready to pour boldness into you, to give you a backbone of steel, to give you a tongue of fire, to give you a heart unafraid of rejection. But you must decide, will you step out of hiding? Will you declare what God has placed in you? Will you dare to stand when others bow? God showed me that what He wants to awaken in you will shock even you. You think you are ordinary, but God says you are chosen. You think you are weak, but God says you are strong in Him. You think you are unworthy, but God says you are appointed for this hour. So I say again, what God showed me about Charlie Kirk will shock you, not because of who he is, but because of what it reveals about who God wants you to be. Do not let the example pass you by. Do not dismiss it as another story. See it as a divine summons. God is calling you right now to step into your destiny, to open your mouth, to stand boldly, to fear nothing, to live unshaken, to shine without apology. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk goes deeper than a single man or a single voice. It is a window into how God moves in history, how God selects vessels, how God places courage inside fragile human hearts to confront forces that seem larger than life. Do not mistake this as a story about fame or about politics or about personality. No, it is a story about God's divine pattern, a pattern that repeats again and again across generations. God chooses unlikely instruments, God equips them with fire, and God positions them in the middle of chaos to prove that light will always pierce the darkness. Revealed to me that God, the reason people are shaken by voices like Charlie Kirk, not because the man is extraordinary in himself, but because the truth he carries cannot be ignored. When God places conviction in a person, it comes with weight. Words spoken under divine conviction carry a power that logic alone cannot generate. They unsettle, they awaken, they disturb, they provoke thought, and they ignite passion. And when the world hears this kind of truth, they must respond. They will either hate it or be humbled by it, but they cannot remain neutral. This is how you know God is behind a message. It shakes people from their slumber. But here is the deeper revelation. God is showing us that every one of us has been entrusted with a measure of truth. Yet most people bury it. Most people silence themselves because they fear the consequences of being bold. They fear losing friends, fear rejection, fear being misunderstood, fear standing alone. And so they live quiet, safe, invisible lives. But God is shouting through examples like Charlie Kirk, do not bury what I have placed in you. Do not hide what I have entrusted to you. Do not smother the fire that I lit within your soul. God is teaching that the world does not change through those who remain silent. It changes through those who dare to speak even when their voice trembles. And as God continued to show me, He pressed this truth deep into my heart. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is faith that speaks louder than fear. When I looked at Charlie Kirk through the lens God provided, I realized that he is not fearless, he is faithful. And that is the lesson for all of us. You do not need to be fearless to obey God. You do not need to have it all together. You do not need to have perfect eloquence or perfect confidence. What you need is a heart that says, God, I will not shrink back. And when you say that, when you make that choice, God clothes you with courage you could never manufacture on your own. Another angle God revealed to me is this. We live in an hour when truth itself is under attack. Lies are dressed in the garments of virtue. Deception is marketed as compassion. Darkness is celebrated as enlightenment. And those who dare to call a lie are labeled dangerous, intolerant, or hateful. Yet God is saying, I am raising voices who will not bend to the language of deception, who will not swallow the poison of compromise. And when you see someone stand boldly in such a climate, it is not meant to shock you into admiration alone. It is meant to shock you into recognition that God is calling you to the same boldness. God also showed me this powerful reality. The strength of a voice does not come from its volume, but from its alignment with truth. There are many loud voices in the world, many who shout endlessly, yet their words fall empty because they are disconnected from God's truth. But when God gives someone a message, when their voice aligns with His eternal truth, then even a whisper becomes thunder. Even a few words can pierce hearts like arrows. God is showing us that influence is not measured in numbers, but in impact. And He asks you today, are your words aligned with my truth, or are they just echoes of the world? The revelation continues. God showed me that the opposition one faces is the very sign of authenticity. When you carry God's message, resistance will meet you. Do not be shocked when critics multiply. Do not despair when friends walk away. Do not be dismayed when society mocks you. The truth is this: if you face no resistance, you are likely not carrying anything of divine significance. But if you face hostility, if you endure misunderstanding, if you feel the sting of rejection, rejoice, for you have been entrusted with a portion of what it means to walk in the calling of God. God is showing us through Charlie Kirk that resistance is not failure, it is confirmation. And I must tell you what God pressed even deeper. The shock is not only that one man can rise, but that God wants to raise a multitude. God is not satisfied with a few bold voices. He is calling for a generation that will roar with truth. Imagine the power if thousands of men and women refuse to be silenced. Imagine the shift if people in every city, every school, every workplace carried the same uncompromising conviction. The enemy trembles not because of one voice, but because of the army God is preparing through that one voice. God is showing you that your role is not to admire the messenger, but to become one yourself. And here is another layer. God is calling us to understand that truth without love becomes harsh, but love without truth becomes weak. The balance of the two is what makes a voice irresistible. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk is that when a person speaks with deep conviction while carrying a heart for the people, their words cannot easily be dismissed. People may fight them, but deep down, they know there is sincerity behind it. This is what God wants from you. Not that you speak truth to win arguments, but that you speak truth to rescue hearts. Truth spoken from pride cuts people down, but truth spoken from love lifts people up, even when it confronts them. God also revealed a warning when He raises voices to speak truth. Those who ignore them are not rejecting men, they are rejecting God's message. This is why the stakes are so high. When God places a messenger in your path, the response you give is not merely personal opinion. It reveals whether your heart is open or hardened. And when God raises people like Charlie Kirk, it is not for entertainment. It is a test of whether you will listen, reflect, and awaken, or whether you will dismiss, mock, and resist. God is watching not just the one who speaks, but the multitudes who listen. And God showed me something about timing. When God raises someone to speak, it is always in response to a need in the world. The message is always connected to the moment. If you look carefully, you will see that God does not send voices randomly. He sends them strategically. He positions them exactly when lies are loudest, when deception is most dangerous, when the people are most asleep. And so, when God revealed to me the significance of Charlie Kirk, I saw that this was not coincidence, it was timing. And in the same way, God is preparing you for your moment. Your timing will come. The hour will arrive when you will either stand or remain silent. And when that moment comes, may you remember this revelation: God will strengthen you if you choose to obey. Beloved, hear this clearly. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk is a mirror for all of us. The reflection is clear. You too are called to courage. You too are called to truth. You too are called to love boldly in a world that is collapsing under deception. And if you think this is impossible, if you think you are too small, too ordinary, hear the voice of God saying, I delight in using the ordinary to do the extraordinary. What shocks us about His choice is meant to shatter our excuses. God is not limited by your background, your education, your wealth, your connections, or your status. God looks for only one thing: a willing heart. And so, my heart cries as I deliver this message to you. The time is short, the hour is urgent, and the call of God is loud. Do not waste your days living in silence. Do not waste your life bowing to fear. Do not bury the fire that God has placed inside you. Rise now with boldness, with conviction, with love, with unshakable faith in God alone. This is the lesson, this is the revelation, and this is the challenge that God has delivered through the example of Charlie Kirk. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk shook me, because it reminded me of how God has always worked with humanity. Throughout history, God has chosen people not because they were the strongest, the smartest, or the most impressive in the eyes of the world, but because they carried a heart willing to stand when others bowed. God takes what seems ordinary and breathes upon it until it becomes extraordinary. And when I looked at this, God whispered into my spirit, this is not about one man. This is about the pattern of how I move. This is about how I want to move in you. God showed me that courage is not born in comfort. It is born in conflict. You do not learn to be bold when the crowd agrees with you. You learn to be bold when the crowd despises you. You do not discover your faith when life is easy. You discover your faith when life demands it. Charlie Kirk is not standing because the path is smooth. He is standing because God has allowed the opposition to sharpen him. And here lies the revelation: when God raises you, He also raises your opposition. The harder the storm, the deeper your roots must go. The louder the critics, the clearer your conviction must be. God does not shield you from the fire. He strengthens you in the fire. And so God asked me to tell you this: stop praying for an easy life. Stop begging for a path without resistance. Instead, pray for strength. Pray for courage. Pray for a heart that will not bend under pressure. Because God is not looking for people who survive comfort. He is looking for people who can thrive in conflict. And when He finds them, He elevates them as examples, as He has done with Charlie Kirk. The shock is not that a young man can be so bold. The shock is that so many of us have settled for silence while God is calling us to roar. God also revealed something about vision. When He gives a person a vision rooted in truth, it becomes unstoppable. A vision from God is not swayed by public opinion, not silenced by critics, not destroyed by setbacks. It carries divine momentum. And when I saw what God was doing, I realized that Charlie Kirk is not driven by ambition alone. He is driven by vision. And vision cannot be manufactured by men. It comes from God. Without vision, people wander in confusion, following trends, bowing to whatever is popular. But with vision, a person becomes unshakable because they are anchored to something beyond themselves. God is asking you today, do you have a vision rooted in me? Or are you drifting in the chaos of the world? Another truth God impressed upon me is this: when He raises someone to speak truth, it will always divide. Truth is like a sword. It cuts. It separates light from darkness, right from wrong, courage from cowardice. Do not be shocked when truth offends. Do not be surprised when truth disrupts. The purpose of truth is not to keep people comfortable. It is to confront lies that have enslaved them. And this is why many despise truth, because it demands change. And what God is showing us through the example of Charlie Kirk is that if you dare to speak truth, you must be prepared for division. But remember this: division is not failure. Division is evidence that truth has done its work. And here is the deeper wisdom. God uses opposition not only to test the messenger, but also to expose the hearts of the listeners. When a bold voice rises, people reveal who they really are by how they respond. Some will hate because their hearts are hardened. Some will awaken because their hearts are humble. The same truth that sets one person free will enrage another. And God is showing us that the presence of opposition is not the end of a message. It is the beginning of transformation. Without resistance, there is no refining. Without division, there is no clarity. Without challenge, there is no change. But God showed me something else. Something even more shocking. He showed me that every generation has its appointed voices, but if the people ignore them, the consequence is not just personal, it is societal. When God sends truth and it is rejected, darkness spreads faster. Lies become laws, evil becomes normalized, and soon a generation reaps the harvest of their rejection. This is why God raises people like Charlie Kirk, not to entertain, not to gather applause, but to warn. And if we dismiss the warning, we cannot escape the consequences. God is asking us all, will you listen, or will you harden your heart? Beloved, God is not asking you to become a copy of someone else. He is not asking you to mimic Charlie Kirk. He is asking you to find your own voice, rooted in your own calling. But the principle is the same: courage, conviction, faith, and obedience. What shocks us about His boldness is not meant to make us spectators. It is meant to make us participants. God is saying, I am calling you out of the shadows. I am calling you out of complacency. I am calling you out of silence. Rise up and speak what I have placed in you. Oh, God also reminded me of this unshakable truth. The world does not change through the majority. It changes through the remnant. History is never shaped by those who blend in, but by those who dare to stand out. One man who stands in truth outweighs 1,000 who remain silent. One woman who refuses to bow can shake an empire. And when God lifts up a voice like Charlie Kirk, He is showing you that one person truly can make a difference. Do not underestimate the power of one life surrendered to God. Do not underestimate the impact of one person who refuses to compromise. For it is not the size of the messenger that matters. It is the size of the God who stands behind them. And so the question God places before you is this: will you be silent, or will you be bold? Will you bury your gift, or will you release it? Will you fear the opinions of men, or will you fear God alone? Do not waste your life living small. Do not waste your breath hiding truth. Do not let fear silence what God has commanded you to speak. For one day, you will stand before God and He will ask you, what did you do with the voice I gave you? Did you use it, or did you bury it? This is why God showed me what He did. Not to elevate a man, but to awaken a people. Not to glorify a voice, but to stir many voices. Not to shock us with an example, but to provoke us into action. The message is clear. If God can raise one, He can raise you. If God can strengthen one, He can strengthen you. If God can use one, He can use you. The time for silence is over. The hour for compromise is gone. The season for passivity has ended. God is calling you, yes, to rise with conviction, to stand with courage, and to live with unshakable faith in Him alone. And now I must leave you with the very heartbeat of what God showed me. Listen carefully, for these are not words to entertain your ears, but to pierce your soul. God has made it clear, the world does not need more silent believers, more fearful dreamers, or more people waiting for someone else to rise. The world needs you. Yes, you who are listening right now, you may think you are too small, too unworthy, too ordinary, but God is saying, I created you for this exact moment. I place you here in this generation, not to hide but to shine. Do not underestimate the power of one life fully yielded to God. Do not underestimate what He can do when you stop running from your calling and start running into His arms of strength. The courage you admire in others is the same courage God wants to deposit inside you. The boldness you applaud in another is the same boldness waiting to be awakened in your spirit. What God showed me about Charlie Kirk was not meant to make you a spectator. It was meant to awaken you to your own divine summons. The time for excuses is over. The time for compromise is gone. The time for hiding has ended. God is calling you to rise, to step forward with unshakable faith, to open your mouth without fear, and to walk into your destiny with fire in your soul. You are not here by accident. You are not alive by chance. God Himself placed breath in your lungs for a purpose greater than yourself. So I challenge you, do not leave this moment unchanged. Do not walk away and forget the stirring in your heart. Let this be the day you decide, once and for all, to live boldly, to live fearlessly, to live in full surrender to God's calling on your life. Stand when others bow, Speak when others are silent. Shine when others hide. For when you do, the world will know that God still raises voices, God still works through vessels, and God still calls ordinary people to carry extraordinary truth. Now the choice is yours. Will you bury your voice, or will you unleash it? Will you shrink in fear, or will you rise in faith? God is waiting for your answer. Step into the call. Step into the fire.